Boy, did we have a great first weekend of college football. So many upsets, so many teams were struggling. It's only fitting to talk about it. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make some week 2 college football predictions later in the show. The matchups this week are not as good as the ones we had last week, but they're still some pretty decent matchups if you ask me. It took me a while to look at them, but the matchups we have this weekend are not that bad at all. They're just not as good as they were this weekend. Let's kind of talk about some matchups that kind of stuck out to me a little bit. Let's start with the one on Thursday night, Appalachian State versus Tennessee. Now, I knew that this Tennessee and Appalachian State was going to be a great matchup. Both are some teams with things to prove. Appalachian State 10-2 last year. I mean, we've known Appalachian State can pull off some upsets against college football powerhouses before. 9 years ago, they upset Michigan in the Big House. And they almost upset Tennessee. They almost upset them in Knoxville. So the game just kind of starts out like Tennessee just really shot themselves in the foot throughout most of the first half. I mean, they muffed the first punt, which led to an Appalachian State touchdown, and their best defensive player, basically their leader on defense, who's probably a top 15 pick in this year's NFL draft, Jalen Reeves-Maven on a targeting call. It was kind of an obvious targeting call, and they really were missing him throughout the game, and you could tell. Because not only was the defense, but the offense was as well. The offense just could not get the ball moving until around the middle of the third quarter, when Josh Dobbs just made an explosion, an exploding pass to Josh Malone to tie the game up. But earlier in that game, when Appalachian State scored that second touchdown, they missed the extra point, which even Brent Musburger warned everybody that could come back to haunt them later in the game. And it did. And it's tied up at 13 going into overtime. And Josh Dobbs just sneaks in for the touchdown, but he fumbles the ball, but Jalen Hurd is at the bottom of the pile to recover the football. Touchdown, Tennessee. However, maybe we're not in that situation, though, because Appalachian State really messed up on the last drive of regulation. I mean, I think they had like 2 timeouts to spare, but they only used like 1 of them. Anyway, but still, Tennessee won the game. I mean, they almost lost it, but Tennessee managed to fall from number 9 to number 20. So they lost 11 spots for it. So you just imagine what would have happened if they actually lost. They probably would have been unranked. Just something to keep in mind. And the next game that stuck out to me, number 3 Oklahoma was something to prove, and number 15 Houston was something to prove. Both these quarterbacks really have stuff to prove. Baker Mayfield's got unfinished business. Greg Ward just wants to prove more. Because Houston has proved they can beat powerhouses before. They beat Florida State in the Peach Bowl last year. And basically what happened is Greg Ward basically just ate up Oklahoma secondary. And plus Oklahoma they were really just screwed themselves over. I mean, so many penalties, so many dumb penalties, really. I mean, Baker Mayfield just made so many mistakes in that game. Baker Mayfield was just flustered most of it. He did great in the first quarter, but after that, he just started to get flustered, and Houston just figured out ways to stop him. They were pulling out of the stops. And Houston wound up to win the game. However, what really sparked the momentum was that kick 6. Not as dramatic as the Auburn-Alabama one a couple years ago, but it's what really got the momentum. Because OU didn't even know that Houston had a guy down there. They didn't realize it till he was 109 yards later to the house. That pretty much could have been the dagger for OU, but they tried to come back. And Baker Mayfield connected for a touchdown with their tight end, I believe it was. But they missed the 2-point conversion, only be down by 8. So that was kind of the dagger. Now, the next matchup that really stuck out to me, there were several ones that stuck out to me, but this next one, LSU and Wisconsin. Now, I thought Wisconsin was going to put up a fight in that one. I believe I said it was. Because I thought LSU was going to win by 3, and then I changed my mind to 10. I just feel stupid either way. Because it would have made more sense to just pick LSU to win by 3, because I knew, being in Lambeau Field, I knew Wisconsin was going to have more fans than LSU was. It only would have made more sense. It was practically a home game for Wisconsin, even though it was at a neutral site. Now, Wisconsin's defense did a really good job of containing Leonard Fournette in the first half. In the second half, Leonard Fournette just started. He was doing great at running and catching the football. Leonard Fournette ended up with about 69% of LSU's total offense. If you want to really get into truthful numbers, it's 68.5. But what really was just disappointing to see is just the poor sportsmanship from LSU's offensive lineman, Josh Boutte. Just the absolute poor sportsmanship on his part. That was like the worst cheap shot I've ever seen in my career of watching football. And that was just horrible. I'm really glad they suspended him for the game this weekend, though. But practically the NCAA should step in on this one. Because just ejecting him for like the last 45 seconds of that game, it wasn't even enough. The game was already over anyway. He should be suspended for maybe the rest of the season. Alright, next matchup. Number 16 UCLA against the Texas A&M Fighting Aggies. Now this game kind of started off slow for both teams. Texas A&M was moving the football in the first possession, then they fumbled the ball. Then UCLA kind of took advantage of it. And they ended up kicking a field goal. But what really stuck out to me was toward the end. What got the momentum going for A&M was probably in the first quarter when Josh Rosen was trying to throw the football away, but then it got intercepted. But Texas couldn't take advantage by getting points on the board, because their new freshman kicker, Daniel LaCamera, missed the field goal. But that's alright, though, because Texas defense just came on to storm in the second half, and they had a 24-9 lead. But then they just stopped for a bit. They let UCLA tie the game. Trevor Knight was throwing the football when you're up by 15 points with 7.5 minutes left. Run the football, because that's going to eat up at least 40 seconds every time. If you use up all 40 seconds of the play clock, 48 times 3. That's 120 seconds. That takes off 2 whole minutes. But they gave UCLA enough time to tie the game. They almost lost it, too. If Josh Rosen didn't fumble that football after he was all arrogant by just trying to get the A&M fans fired up, because basically in the week he said he's not even fazed by the A&M fans. In his quote, "It's all about the same after 50,000," which is the reason why they were chanting 50,000 every time he stepped off the field. And when he was on the sidelines, they would chant 50,000. So if he doesn't bobble that snap, because he didn't even see Justin Evans, so if he doesn't bobble that snap, we probably lose the game, because they probably have gotten into field goal range, and they would have lost. And I said we because, being an A&M fan, it's just kind of a thing. So A&M got lucky there. They got to kind of clean it up a little bit. They got to clean up on still playing the game, and they're up by 15. The next game. There was just so many good games this weekend. I'm probably going to have to just quickly dive through the Week 2 matchups. But Texas upsetting Notre Dame in 2 overtimes. There was a controversial targeting call on Torrey Hunter Jr. Yes, the son of baseball legend Torrey Hunter. Because if that's not going to be called targeting, then why do we even call targeting at all? Does it even look like it was targeting? And what happened after that is Notre Dame tried to tie the game with the field goal, but it got blocked. That was kind of the momentum for Texas. But then what happened? What led into overtime was Texas trying to kick the extra point, but it got blocked, and Notre Dame ran it back for the 2-point conversion to tie the game up. And both teams just exchanged touchdowns in the first overtime. I believe that's how it happened, yeah. If not, I apologize, because there's just so much good matchups. I needed an extra week to just kind of just, you know, I just needed an extra day to just unwind on all that happened. Let's also note that Clemson kind of struggled against Auburn. I mean, everyone was expecting Clemson to just easily get past Auburn, but they only won 19-13. And the last game that really stuck out to me was Ole Miss Florida State. I mean, Ole Miss was up 28-6 in this game. But what really got the men for Florida State going was that touchdown at the end of the first half, with DeAndre Francois throwing that touchdown. I mean, he knew he was going to take a hit. He threw the touchdown. That is what got the momentum for Florida State and the confidence. Because the defense of Florida State in the first half was just getting beat on every single play that every single pass that Chad Kelly was throwing. But then the second half, the Florida State defense is that Florida State defense we were expecting to see all season. We were anticipating Florida State to probably have one of, if not the best defense in all of college football. And they showed that in the second half. Florida State only gave about 6 points in the second half. So there's the week 1 recap. However, we cannot count out any teams yet, because teams behind the 8 ball. Example, teams behind the 8 ball, Oklahoma, LSU, Notre Dame, UCLA. We can't really count those teams out yet, because there's so much football to be played. All those teams have really strong games to really prove themselves, prove that week 1 was a fluke. Let's also note that notable week 1 teams that lost in week 1 was Stanford. That's a notable team to include, because Stanford wasn't necessarily out of it last season at all. Maybe if one thing went differently in the Oregon game, maybe they would have been in the playoff. So we cannot count out Oklahoma, LSU, or Notre Dame, or UCLA. We can't count those teams out yet, because they still got some tough games to play. But if they can win them, they could find themselves still sitting in the playoff. So it's not over for Notre Dame fans, or OU fans, or LSU fans. It's not over for your team. There is still 14 weeks left in the season. Now on to the Week 2 college football predictions. Now the first matchup, it's not really going to be like that exciting of a matchup, but there's some storylines to it. Wyoming versus Nebraska. On the Wyoming side, you have C.J. Johnson, a redshirt freshman. He's returning to Nebraska where it all began. This Johnson family is basically kind of like a family of athletes. So he's returning to Nebraska where it all began. Former Bellevue West wide receiver standout. I like Nebraska in this one. Penn State versus Pittsburgh. I'm going to pick James Conner to lead Pittsburgh to victory in this one, because he's looking to have the season of a lifetime. After coming back after having cancer, he's looking to take college football by storm and making it a memorable season for everybody. Now, Arkansas versus number 15 TCU. Now, I kind of had a hard time with this one, because many people think Arkansas can win. Arkansas doesn't have a chance, because Arkansas struggled against Louisiana Tech. They nearly lost that one. So I'm going to pick TCU in this one, although I think this is going to be a pretty strong matchup. I think we're going to see kind of a defensive battle at first, but then I think we're going to see a lot of offense in this one. So I'm thinking TCU is going to win probably like about a 45-41 kind of a match, kind of game type of thing. South Carolina versus Mississippi State. Now both these teams have something to prove this year. Mississippi State had a heartbreaking loss to South Alabama last weekend. Their kicker missed a go-ahead chip shot field goal with about 6 seconds to go. And South Carolina had a 13-10 win against Vanderbilt on the opening day of college football. But I'm going to pick South Carolina to win this one. I just think South Carolina has a lot more to prove this year. I mean, Mississippi State wants to prove that they can do this without Dak Prescott, but I think Mississippi State's going to go backwards this year. It's not that they're bad or anything. It's just that they need some time to just figure out the future. BYU versus Utah. Now, this is a rematch of last year's Las Vegas Bowl. But I like BYU to get Utah this time. Yes, Utah has an experienced offensive line. Probably the most experienced offensive line in all of college football. But I just think BYU, I think they're out for blood this year. So I'm going to pick BYU to win this one. And I think it's going to be about, I'm going to say 31-28. Right, North Carolina versus Illinois. Illinois got a solid victory last weekend. A good W for Lovie Smith's debut. And North Carolina is trying to come off of that heartbreaking loss against Georgia. I think this is going to be a close game. I think this is going to be a well-fought game. I'm going to think Illinois is going to put up a great fight in this one. I'm going to pick North Carolina to win at the end. I'm going to say North Carolina will get a decisive 42-37 victory. Now, Iowa State versus Iowa. This is a huge rivalry game where anything goes. And it's been close over the years. But I think I'm going to pick Iowa. I'm going to pick Iowa to win by double digits. I think it's going to be about, I think we're going to pick up about a 31-17 victory. All right, Texas Tech and Arizona State. I'm going to get this one first. I see this being a huge, I see this being an offensive battle. I'm going to say that we're going to see a lot of offense this one, but not a lot of defense. I'm going to pick Texas Tech to win this. I'm going to say it's going to be a 55-52 victory. Like, this game's going to have a lot of offense. It's going to lack defense a lot in this one. It's going to be evident. Now, the final one of the weekend that I'll predict this week. Virginia Tech versus number 20 Tennessee. Virginia Tech and Tennessee, those are teams that really struggled in week one all throughout. But both these teams managed to get a win. This is going to be played in Bristol, Tennessee. It's anticipated to have 150,000 people there. Just the biggest attendance in college football history. It's actually a racetrack that was formed into a football field just for this game. I'm going to pick Tennessee to win this one. I just fear there will be more Tennessee people there than Virginia Tech fans. So it'll be a home game for Tennessee. Yes, they struggled against Appalachian State last week, but I think Tennessee is going to clean everything up from week one. I think they're going to get a huge win against Virginia Tech. I'm going to say it'll be a 35-24 victory for Tennessee. So that's going to do it. There's your Week 2 college football predictions, as well as your Week 1 college football recap. Like and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with all your friends. Follow my sports Twitter account at JB Talk Sports. Have a good day, everybody. I will see you for the next video. The NFL Week 1 predictions. They're right on this paper. I'll see you in a little bit.